Hey guys, this is Philip, and it is week 3 on ambiguiT. Welcome back. I am really happy to see you guys for week 3, and this topic I think you will be interested in. Now this topic I have a little bit more experience with than my week 2 topic, which was drag culture. I had a little bit of experience with it, but not quite. This I think all trans people have a shared experience with, so I'm excited to talk about it. So, what is this week's topic? It is internalized transphobia. Now, internalized transphobia, by definition, right over here, my definition is a little bit different, but similar. Now, my definition of internalized transphobia is this idea that is underlining of everything that we do. And this stems from society, from culture, from your parents, from maybe religion. It's something that we were given very, very young. And it's something that is in all of us, unfortunately. Maybe some of us don't realize we have it. Maybe some of us have fought it and maybe we've overcome it. But it's something that I think all trans people can kind of come together with and accept as something that we share. So internalized transphobia for me is this underlying discrimination within yourself. So it kind of follows you wherever you go. It's this ugly little demon that kind of sits on your shoulder telling you nasty things about yourself. And I don't want it to confuse it with dysphoria, although it can tie in with that. And I don't want to confuse it with feeling insecure, because it's a little bit more than that. Internalized transphobia are all the things that society tells us that we are, that we aren't. You know, it's this idea that society has kind of given to us. It's the worst gift you can receive. So here are some things that we battle with internalized transphobia. Something that I really had a lot of struggle with was masculinity. Now masculinity ties really into internalized transphobia because of its poison. It's this idea that men should always, at all times, be masculine without any break or respite, and anyone who deviates from this masculine ideal is other, or different, or wrong, or sick. One of the most dangerous thoughts, because it really does tie into outward transphobia and discrimination and all those ugly, ugly things that society does to trans people. So, my struggle with internalized transphobia and masculinity specifically is that as I was coming out, I was finding myself forcing myself to be more and more masculine so that I could be valid. I was only valid as a trans man if I was masculine. And I think that that's something that transphobic societies really do kind of drill into us. And as a young trans man, I was, you know, purging all of my femininity. And as a feminine person, that was really unnatural. As I was purging these things from myself, I was losing myself and I was becoming unhappy because I wasn't being myself, you know? So this idea that... Sorry, there's a little bee and he's in the sand. I don't want him to sting me. Now, so this idea that we have to disconnect ourselves from something that we feel is not valid as a trans person is really, really dangerous, because that's where we get into this depressive state where we're no longer happy with ourselves because we don't feel like we can be ourselves. So within the trans masculine community, I see this rejection of femininity, and I see it as a way that we are artificially elevating ourselves. So these men that are tearing down feminine men are really artificially elevating themselves because they themselves feel like they're not valid. So it's a really, really negative cycle, and it really does only cause harm. It really never causes any good. So a really good way to combat that is something that my therapist told me a couple weeks ago, and I've been trying to practice it within myself, so maybe I'll give this tool to you. So a way that you can combat these negative feelings towards specifically masculinity and femininity is to tell yourself something that you like about your personality that isn't something that society deems valid. So something that I really like is that I can fit any floral pattern together. Like, I really know how to mix florals so that they're not jumbled and messed up. And I think that's a really cool quality in myself because it's great for decorating and dressing up. So that's something I like about myself. And I think that this is a good exercise because it feels unnatural, and I think that it's good because we get uncomfortable within that idea of lifting ourselves up instead of tearing ourselves down. And this can really be applicable to any aspect of your life. So she tells me to keep track of all those negative thoughts. And specifically with trans guys, I think that we have this constant little tiny voice in the back of our heads that tells us, you can't do that. And I think that we need to start combating that within ourselves. So a good way to do that is to create a good voice to constantly be yelling back at that bad voice. So keep track of all those negative thoughts and combat it with something good. That's a tool that I've found helpful. You don't have to do it, but I do encourage you to try it. It is going to feel really, really, really uncomfortable at first, but the more you do it, the more you're going to find wonderful things about yourself. And the more you're going to find that, hey, that voice is there a lot. I didn't realize I was saying that many nasty things to myself throughout the day. And that's a really good way to be self-aware. So that's something that you can do for yourself. Now, within the community, we are a little bit nasty to each other when it comes to masculinity in itself. So starting off as a young trans guy, I think that this is something that a lot of us can kind of relate with. We do a lot of research, right? We know how to pass, how to look masculine, how to get people to call me sir. All those things kind of tie it in together. So we do a lot of research, we find all these articles, and a lot of them are flawed because they focus a lot on that masculinity. So at some point you do become that critic of yourself. At some point you do become the internalized transphobia because you're constantly trying to adjust yourself so that you can look masculine enough, so that you can look trans enough, so that you can look right as a man or something like that. And I think that it's something that really harms us rather than helps us. So of course, you know, my advice to you is going to take those articles with a grain of salt. It's something that I feel like these articles and these really, they're meaning to help, but for me they're doing more harm than they are helping, because there's no one way that you can be trans. There's no one way that you can get people to recognize that you're a man. It's really, really hard to get a reaction from someone you've never spoken to, never met before. And it's very artificial for me. Now, I'm not going to say that for those of you who are making videos of how to be more masculine and how to pass and all this stuff, I think that that's important that we have those resources because they helped me a lot, you know? Some little things that you can do, like walking with your chest up or lowering your voice, those are really great helpful hints. But I want you to take a look at them and make sure that when you're looking at them, you are only taking them as examples. You're not taking them to heart as something that you need to follow completely, because then we begin to have this set of guidelines and this little check boxes that we have to check off every time we pass or every time we do something that's right as a trans guy, and I think that that becomes a little bit toxic. So take everything with a grain of salt, of course, and remember, there is no one way to be a man. There are many cis men who walk with their hips. There are many cis men who wear pink every day. There are many cis men with long, long hair flowing through the wind. You know, there's no way to be a man. And in regards to people calling you sir, in regards to people calling you your birth name, in regards to people seeing you as a man, it's almost like a math equation. And I'm really bad at math. It's very, very, very difficult to receive the right reaction from strangers. It's not your fault that they don't call you sir. It's not your fault that they don't call you ma'am. It's not your fault that they don't see you. Everyone wants to be seen rather than to be looked at. And that's something that I got from Amanda Palmer, which is a really great book called The Art of Asking. And reading this, I kind of understood something that I had never really thought about before, especially as trans people. when we go out, we're asking, please, please, please don't misgender me this time, please call me my birth name. It's this very vulnerable state. And when we look at these articles, when we look at each other, and when we give each other advice, we're almost giving each other the answer that we've been asking for. So when we don't receive that correct gender, when we don't receive the correct name, then we tear ourselves down and say, nope, you didn't do it right, you failed, you didn't pass. And I think that that is really a root of a lot of issues within the trans community. And I'm not saying that if you feel the most comfortable in a masculine presentation, I'm not saying that that's wrong. That if that is you, then that is you. But if it's not you, release it, let it go. It's not for you. It's like taking a diet plan of all the food that you dislike, you know? I really, really hate octopus. I would never take a diet plan of all octopus food because it just would be disgusting. I'd be puking all day. So, again, take those for a grain of salt and be kind to each other, you know? A lot of internalized transphobia is something that you can't escape because it's inside you. So we don't want to become another outside voice pounding into that individual's mind because we're already doing it to ourselves. So, I gave you a tool. Combat that nasty voice inside your head with a really good voice and be kind to each other. Take all of those advice columns, all of those videos with a grain of salt, and don't set a standard for yourself. I'm not saying like lose all your standards, lose all your expectations, but you don't need to be a cookie cutter. You don't need to be this perfect man. You don't need to be the perfect trans man. You don't need to take pictures of yourself every single day to see how much your hair grew in, because I promise you, not all of us are gonna have that beard. You know, individualize your own experience and be kind. Be kind to yourself, be kind to each other. It's really important that we look out for each other as a community, and it's really important that we are looking out for ourselves and nurturing ourselves, nurturing our souls. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for joining me. Thanks for hanging out on the beach with me today. I hope you have a really great week, and I hope you join us again next week on ambiguiT. Don't forget to subscribe. If you have any comments or experiences below, let me know. I do read the comments, so see you guys next week. Bye.
What everybody thinks, I just do me. Pounded lamb belly, living poor. I saw the rich on TV, so I wanted more. The truth is I only rap, but they said I couldn't do it. Now who's foolish?